Hello, everyone. We're delighted to have you join us for today's session of ACB Connects. I'm Susan Sands, president of ACB, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's discussion with three members of the Creative Repertoire Initiative, Robert Ambrose, Alex Shapiro, and Frank Ticheli. The Creative Repertoire Initiative is a collective of composers and conductors who are committed to creating adaptable music for ensembles that addresses the repertoire challenges we face during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. ACB Connects is sponsored by the Association of Concert Bands, an international nonprofit organization whose mission is to foster excellence in concert band music through performance, education, and advocacy. Our membership includes concert community bands, band directors, individual members, and corporate members. Everyone who cares about concert bands is welcome. Today's session is presented as a service to our members and as an outreach for the music community. We have a few housekeeping items before I introduce today's guests. For optimal audio, everyone except the presenters has been muted. ACB Connects is being recorded. Today's session will be archived and along with the previous two sessions, can be accessed from the ACB Connects page on the ACB website. And finally, today's session will allow for a few interactive questions during the discussion. If you have any questions or comments, you can share these in the chat and as many as possible will be addressed. At this time, it's my honor to welcome and to introduce our distinguished guests from the Creative Repertoire Initiative. Our first guest, conductor Robert Ambrose, currently serves as Director of Bands at Georgia State University, a research institution of over 53,000 students located in Atlanta. Under his direction, the Georgia State Band Program has received widespread recognition with performances at the College Band Directors National Association Southern Division Conference, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and the 2013 Presidential Inaugural Parade, and has internationally distributed recordings on the Summit and GIA labels. Dr. Ambrose is founder and music director of the Atlanta Chamber Winds and the Washington, D.C.-based National Chamber Winds, co-founder of the Bent Frequency Contemporary Music Ensemble, and the founder and principal guest conductor of the Metropolitan Atlanta Youth Wind Ensemble. Dr. Ambrose's transcriptions and editions are published by Presser Music, C. Allen Publications, and Fennica Gehrman. His arrangements appear on several state music lists. Composer Alex Shapiro is known for her genre-blind acoustic and electroacoustic pieces, including a significant catalog of electroacoustic wind band works for musicians at all performance levels. Published by her company, Activist Music LLC, Alex's music is heard daily in concerts and broadcasts across the US and internationally, and can be found on over 30 commercially released recordings. Ms. Shapiro is noted for her seamless melding of live and recorded sounds and for her innovative uses of multimedia in performance and music education. A widely published author on topics ranging from technology, copyright, diversity and inclusion, music education, and the music business, Alex advocates tirelessly for other artists. She is a symphonic and concert writer member of the Board of Directors of ASCAP and serves on the Board of Directors of the ASCAP Foundation and the Aaron Copland Fund for Music. Our next guest, Frank Ticheli, writes music that has been described as being optimistic and thoughtful by the Los Angeles Times, lean and muscular by the New York Times, brilliantly effective by the Miami Herald, and powerfully, deeply felt crafted with impression, flair, and an ear for striking instrumental colors by the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Dr. Ticheli joined the faculty of the University of Southern California's Thornton School of Music in 1991, where he is currently professor of composition. And from 1991 to 1998, he served as the composer in residence of the Pacific Symphony. Dr. Ticheli's orchestral works have received considerable recognition in the United States and Europe, with performances by the orchestras of Philadelphia, Atlanta, Detroit, Dallas, Nashville, Stuttgart, Frankfurt, and Saarbrücken, and many others. However, he's best known for his works for wind ensemble and concert band, many of which have become standards in the repertoire. Our moderator today is Gail Brechting. Gail is president-elect for the Association of Concert Bands and the director of the West Michigan Concert Winds. Now it's my pleasure to turn the program over to our moderator, Gail Brechting.
Thank you, Susan. Hello, everyone. Well, we're here to hear what these three wonderful people have to say about this organization. So let's get right to our guests. Please welcome Dr. Robert Ambrose to explain what CRI is all about. Dr. Ambrose?
Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in tonight. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Creative Repertoire Initiative and spending a little time with you along with my dear friends Alex Shapiro and Frank Ticheli. I'm going to just begin with a very quick introduction of how this organization began, where we came from, how we started, and what brought us to where we are today. And then there'll be lots of times for questions and show and share and all those kinds of things. But CRI began during the beginning of the pandemic. In late February, early March, conductor Alan McMurray contacted Frank Ticheli and said, you know, Frank, these bands may not have any music to play next fall, and what are you gonna do about it? And Frank set to work on a task of figuring out what he would do and thought about it thoughtfully. I mean, Frank could tell you this too, but I was asked to give an introduction, so here it is. He said, well, maybe I'll start arranging my music for smaller forces and for more flexible groups. So Alan and Frank brought me on board right away, and Frank and I started contacting our friends and asking these folks if they wanted to get on board with this mission. And the Creative Repertoire Initiative was born, a group of 12 of us working to create adaptable music for band and orchestra and other ensembles, and as importantly, to empower other composers to do the same thing. So that's where we began. And to give you just a broad overview of the organization, I'll share my screen here for just a moment. Here's our webpage, the Creative Repertoire Initiative. It's just called creativerepertoire.com. And it was very intentional on our part not to make this page a place where people could buy music, a clearinghouse for talking about music. This was a landing page for people to learn about CRI and then discover more themselves. The composers were acutely aware of their stature in the profession, and we wanted to make sure that this group of composers wasn't going to corner the market. It wasn't going to be seen as CRI as a group and you're either in it or you're not in it. We were just a way of a voice for everybody, for composers to get their music shared and for directors to learn about it. So as you move through our site here, we just talk about what we are. And here's maybe the most important thing of what is a definition of adaptable music. And it's a term that we came up with after many Zoom meetings to encompass large, different types of pieces, flex pieces, what we call full flex pieces, modular cellular pieces, and improvisatory pieces. But the key piece of the puzzle here is that they were adaptable for many different types of situations, which is why we came up with that word. So flex pieces are the types of pieces that have been around forever, where there's a set of parts, perhaps 5 or 6 parts, and as long as one of the instruments for each of those parts is available, you can have a reasonable performance of that band. Full flex pieces, which several of the CRI composers have invested in, are pieces where no matter who shows up that day, the piece can be performed. So there are 4 parts, for example, and anyone can play any of the parts. So we thought, you know, we don't know how these band programs are going to be structured. And it may be that on Monday, it's A through G in the alphabet, and on Tuesday, it's H through M. And of course, that would be a death knell for band directors. But if they have repertoire that's so flexible that anyone could play any part, then that would offer the directors a path forward with some repertoire. So as our friend Julie Giroux said, if 3 trombones and a sock drum show up, you can perform the piece that day. So varying instrumentation, unpredictable instrumentation, changing instrumentation, full flex pieces allow for those kinds of situations. Then some of the composers jumped in with some modular cellular pieces, and I think Alex and Frank are each going to talk about their pieces that fall into that category. These are pieces that are written with motivic cells that can be repeated with a degree of aleatory involved. And then finally, improvisatory pieces. These are pieces that have some type of flexibility in terms of instrumentation, but also utilize some form of improvisation. And Omar Thomas, one of our founders, created a piece called Sharp 9 that does exactly that. So just right out of the gate, that's the question people always ask: what is adaptable music? It's an umbrella term for flexible music, and these are 4 types. There may be more, and if other people come up with other types of adaptable music, we'll add it to the list. The more, the better. And just quickly, those are the people that comprise the Creative Repertoire Initiative. There are 12 of us. So that's our webpage. And as I said, one of the primary goals for us was to not only create a body of repertoire, but to encourage other composers to do the same and to help amplify their voices. So on our page, we have a blog, Resources for Composers, where our composers have shared some of their ideas or concepts for writing for adaptable band. There's articles here from Brian Balmages, from Stephen Bryant, Julie Giroux, Alex Shapiro, Frank Ticheli. And perhaps even more importantly, we created a Facebook group. And this group is now sitting at over 5,000 members. We're really proud to say that, comprising mostly band directors and composers. And this is a place for composers to share their music and for directors to learn about their music. So we're a little bit finicky about the kinds of posts that we allow up there. This isn't so much a discussion board or a place to chat as it is for a director to come and learn about a lot of adaptable music. And as you scroll through, you'll just see lots of pieces, just one after another, of people posting about their adaptable music. Later in the session, I'll talk about where the database, the best database that houses most of the pieces, and where you can learn about pieces in a more organized and sequential way. But until that time, if you want to join our Facebook group, there's a single question that we ask for membership, and it's, why do you want to join this group? And as long as you answer it, we'll let you in. If you say, because I want to, that's an absolutely appropriate answer. So if you want to join us, just be sure to answer the question and come join us on our Facebook group. So that's a brief, very brief overview of the Creative Repertoire Initiative, how we started, where we came from, what our purposes are. So I'd like to throw it to my dear friend Alex Shapiro, one of our composers and founders, and she's going to chat a little bit more about some of her music and a little more about CRI. Alex?
Thanks, Robert. And I just have to reiterate something that Robert touched on is the camaraderie between not only
Alex, I believe we lost your sound.
We lost it.
Still.
Oops.
Am I here now?
Yes.
Oh, right. The magic of the internet gnomes. They're on our side today. Okay, you can hear me now. Let me start at the beginning just by saying that Robert and Alan and Frank, when they started this, it was a really beautiful thing of bringing together people who cared so much about supporting our field at a time of great uncertainty. And the camaraderie that has occurred, but not only with all of us who started CRI, but now with the thousands of conductors and composers that are interacting and finding each other thanks to the Facebook page, is magical, and it's beyond anything I think any of us actually ever anticipated. We never thought it would get this big, and it's just a thing of joy to see. So what the three of us are going to do now is, before we get into questions and answers and conversation, is we thought it would be kind of fun to walk you through briefly some examples of what we've been doing, because they're all a bit contrasting with each other, and it shows both those of you who are conductors and those of you who are composers what some of the possibilities are. And I'm going to share my screen and show you the piece that I came up with during the summer in response to all of this, and it's called Passages. And so give me one moment as the internet gnomes behave themselves. And I assume you can see that on your screen, yes? Great. Passages is, I called it Ultraflex, because it pretty much everything in the kitchen sink. I mean, 3 ferrets, 2 bassoonists, and 1 ocarina player can show up, and not only can they play the piece, but and it will sound probably pretty okay. Even the ferret will play well. And but not only that, but they get to make their choices in a cell-based way of what goes where. And I'm going to give you a little tour of that right here. It's also for orchestra, which is not too hard to do. If you throw in an alto clef part, folks, you know, boom, you've made it available to a lot of people. And as you can see here, I thought I'd just show you the front matter, because for the composers out there who are thinking, okay, what's necessary if you want to make something really, really playable? Well, just sit down and think of every clef, every registration, every transposition you can possibly think of, and offer your part in it, and away you go. Now, mine is electroacoustic. What I have found, as many of you know, I do, the majority of my band music is electroacoustic under the best of circumstances. But when it comes to uncertain personnel, meaning we don't know what the numbers are, we don't know who's showing up, we don't know what the instruments are going to be, I have to tell you that it is amazingly helpful. Again, for those composers out there who have an interest in doing electroacoustic work, now's the time, because having a track with which to play, if you are, an oboe player playing in your room and uploading something for a virtual or blended or online or hybrid kind of ensemble experience, having something in your ear, not only with a click, but with a track that will give you a sense of musicianship and something to tune to, of course, it's an advantage. Plus, it kind of makes you sound really cool. And so I thought I'd give you guys a quick example of, very quick, of kind of the passages of the passages, while you look over sort of what I call the game rules here. Because as I put together a cell-based piece, whereas you're going to see in a second, oops, there we go. There are many, many choices of what you can do with it. So here's the accompaniment track, just a little bit of it, to give you a sense of where it starts. One second. This is in the middle of the track. So you can see already, it's very soothing, calm, almost new agey music. I did that intentionally. Some of you know not all of my music is like that. But I figured at a time of great stress, it would be kind of nice to give something, for people to chill out to. So that's the track. The next step, of course, is adding a click, and so that you can know where you are in the beginning. And while you look over the first page here, there is only one page, as you're soon to see, here's just a few seconds of what that sounds like. Just for those of you getting your feet wet in this, you want to start with introductory clicks, a count off that your musicians actually articulate before they record. You get the idea. This piece was dedicated to Robert, and because he truly has been the fearless leader of all of us, or the cat herder, however you want to look at it, adding his wisdom and his musicianship into the mix to just bring this whole, creative repertoire initiative to life. And he's just been a joy to collaborate with on all this. And he in turn offered up to me and some of our colleagues the opportunity to have his incredible musicians from the National Chamber Winds record our pieces remotely to give us demos of them. So I get to share that with you. When you look at a piece like this, there is one main page of material. And in short, you can see what's going on here. Everything is in 5/4. These are all separate lines, but they are designed to, first of all, be in difficulty range between pretty much a grade 2 and a grade 4. And you can choose any and mix and match any lines you want. The only rule is you have to start at the beginning and go all 4 bars, or you can drop things out in the middle, but you just have to start at a bar. You can see they're numbered. You can see there's a percussion option. There's even a tacit option, which is a good thing because you don't want people, overplaying and playing too much all at the same time. But everything was like putting together a jigsaw puzzle because, as you heard in the track, the chords keep shifting and changing. And as you can see with the music, everything interlocks. So the idea is that, it's a puzzle. Everything will work no matter who's playing what, when. Woohoo! It was like doing a little Sudoku game in my brain. So here's an example of what only the instruments are playing. And I want to point out here on another sheet, there is a through-composed bass line for anybody who wants to play that on any of their instruments. And that one does include the timings. And you can see how the track gets a little more active as it races to the finish. And there's also a through-composed percussion line here that is going to come up. There we go. Same kind of idea. And the idea in this case is to improvise on it. The percussionists can do anything they want. They can play any kind of percussion, but it's just something through-composed for them to look at. So when we go back to this, and I'll play just a little bit excerpt of what the instrumentalists alone sounded like without the track, to give you an idea of what that sounded like. Here we go. These are all random choices. And then when you bring it all together, this is what it sounds like. So no, every performance and every version of it is going to be different. And that's sort of the fun of it, And what I did on the page, on the Creative Repertoire Initiative page, under the resources, where you'll find so many great ideas from so many different composer colleagues, there is this. Here's the how-to kind of recipe, so to speak, of if you guys who are composers want to try your hand at this. Here's a recipe: the joy of cooking for for cell-based music. So there you have it. It was really a lot of fun to do, and it's a very rewarding way to engage the musicians at a time when we all feel very separate from each other. Being able to collaborate in this kind of way is really fun. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Frank, who's going to show you a couple of different things that he's done.
Okay, thank you, Alex. That was a pleasure to hear. I haven't heard that one. That was a pleasure. The host has spotlighted my video for every. Okay, I will just I've got to. Am I unmuted? Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. So thank you. I'm going to share a couple of things with you, but before I share my music, I just want to give you a little bit more background about my own evolution in this direction. When I first started early on in the life of CRI, I thought that I would just occupy myself creating fully adaptable works, that is full flex, rather than just regular flex. I mean, flex has been around a long time. The regular flex music, that Hal Leonard has many flex pieces. The Japanese publisher Brain Music, Bravo Brain, that company has flex pieces as well. And so they've been around a long time, and they fulfill a wonderful purpose. But back in March, back in those early days, we thought that wouldn't be enough for the fall. We really didn't know what the fall would be like. We just thought, we feared that regular flex wouldn't be enough. And so early on, I was devoting myself to writing, coming up with a way to do something more radical, a kind of a super flex, full flex, something, as Robert pointed out, that could be played by any combination of players, no matter who shows up in your rehearsal room. I mean, now we know that, even though I was worried about that back in March, that, regular flex wouldn't be enough. Now we know that it is enough, and it's not enough, that all of these different categories we have are enough, and they're not enough, depending on where you live, what state you're in, what your school district's policies are, and so forth. And also we have grown to recognize that all of this music will have a life long after this COVID mess is behind us. And this music will still have relevance for those small band programs, in the short term, for those band programs that will take time to rebuild coming on the other end of this, and then B, for those programs that have always been small, and the smaller towns are just small programs for whatever reason. They have a use for this kind of music because of their limited instrumentation. So as I was saying, early on, I was devoting most of my time to writing these full flex pieces. I'm going to share one with you. And the other type, the sort of Terry Riley inspired cellular modular type. But then some of my music wouldn't work for that. I would start and I would realize, this chord just needs to be rich and full and spread out. And if I do it in this style, it's not going to work. This piece needs to be in a regular flex, but that piece works in the full flex. So I just sort of did it piece by piece. I sort of took it on a piece by piece basis. I think the first piece I finished, though, was this sort of modular cellular sort of piece inspired by Terry Riley, and in fact dedicated to Terry Riley, and it's called In C Dorian. Terry Riley's piece, of course, In C, was the inspiration for it. And I'm going to share with you first the score, and then I'll pull up. I've got a new video, Robert and Alex, just because you guys must be getting tired of the old recordings. So I've got this new video that just came out. In fact, it's not out yet. It won't be out until, I think they're bringing it out for Teachers Day on the 5th. October 5th is World Teachers Day. It'll be out on YouTube, but I've got an advanced copy of it. So I'm going to share that. You guys are getting to see something before the world sees it. But first, I'm going to share my screen and share this score with you. This is my work in C Dorian, and this is just the B flat part. So this particular piece exists for instruments in C treble clef, instruments in B flat treble clef, instruments in C bass clef, instruments in E flat treble clef, and so instruments in F, that would be your horns. Basically, so anybody in any band instrument or orchestral instrument or singer can do these. And in fact, one of the videos I'll share with you has got singers involved as well. So anybody, any combination of any instruments, any size, any makeup, can perform this piece. And they all essentially have exactly the same music. So this first little lick here, you see, bop, 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 bop. Everybody's got that for their first cell. It doesn't mean they have to start with that. They can start anywhere. If you want, you can start here in cell 4. Bop, 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 bop. Or they can start on the, if they want to, if they're in a lyrical mood, they can start the whole thing on cell 5. Dee da 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 da. Oh my goodness, this is being recorded. I need to sing better. But anyway, you've got it there. So you have your choice. It empowers the player, a work like this, to sort of control their destiny, their form. They can play these in any order. I do sort of have a tempo here, although I kind of like it faster now. But my tempo's always evolved faster as I grow into a piece that I wrote. But anyway, so you've got the tempo there. You've got these licks, and it's just 3 pages long. So the next page is here. You see these 2 pages here, and I hope this is large enough for you guys to see the notes. And so one thing you can tell is this more and more notes per square inch. It starts out relatively more 8th note driven with some lyrical tunes, but then by the end it's all these 16th notes. So the idea is that it builds in intensity. But again, you don't have to follow this order necessarily. I do, though, state in the preface notes that I'd like everybody, if either a cue by a player or by the conductor, everybody kind of ends up on the end playing those 8th notes at the end that are driving. Pop, 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 pop. Just I kind of thought that might be a good way to end the piece, with everybody kind of driving at the end like that. Anyway, so this is the score. I'm going to bring up the video, this brand new video. This is the Atlantic Reed Consort. They just did this. It's just 5 players, and they're doing it in a parking structure. Let me see. With the automobile headlights are the spotlights, and it's at nighttime, and they're just in a parking structure. So I'm going to maximize this, and I'm going to split the screen. Let's see if I can make this work. Yeah, there we go. There's that. And I can maximize that. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. I'm wanting to split it, but I don't want to make it big yet. So here we go. We do the split first. Then I pull up this. Bingo. Now you can see them both, right? They're pretty readable, Gail? Okay, good. All right, so I'll start from the beginning here. This is the Atlantic Reed Consort. Whoops. Here we go. There's my audience of one. I love that. Okay. So I just wanted, and then just to quickly share also with you one other, I'm just going to go to the end though, because this is a much slower tempo and it's longer. So, I don't want to say, hey, let's do this all over again, but at a slower tempo. And so we're going to do just the ending. And this is a different group just to show you how flexible, how it can be done by just kind of any configuration. So this is 21 musicians. And I'm going to skip towards the end so you just kind of get it. Yeah. And singers. Okay, so you notice there were singers there. I actually have syllables. I have a vocal part in treble clef and bass clef where I put syllables. I just added syllables to those notes so the singers could sing those syllables. And even there, I have a note that says you don't have to sing these syllables. You can make up your own syllables if you want. These are just a suggestion. But it hadn't occurred to me that you could mix singers with instrumentalists, and so that was kind of cool that they did that. There's another recording I'm not going to share with you here because it's audio only, and that's Robert's wonderful recording that he made with his musicians that he made actually around the same time as this group made theirs. And so I'm grateful to Robert for that, the National Chamber Winds. So there are 3 recordings out there, and I believe on the website you can access 2 of those recordings, Robert's recording and then the one you just saw. So anyway, that's an example of that one. I'm going to share one other, and this is more a representative of the full flex kind of approach. This is my Cajun folk songs. This is just the second movement. And I'm going to pull up the score for this and let me make it a little bit larger so you can see a little bit more clearly. You can see here how I have this set up. This is full flex. That is any combination of 4 instruments. Any 4 instruments can realize this piece. So it could be that if you have on Monday 4 flutes or maybe 2 flutes and 2 oboes or whatever show up, they can play it. It's right here. The entire Cajun folk songs I have compressed into 4 voices so that all the voices are present and those flutes can play it. Or if on Tuesday you have clarinets show up and Wednesday if it's only trumpets, they can play from these 4 staves. From this section, or if it's the saxophones here, or the horns, there they are, or the low brass. Or if on Thursday it's 1 flute, 1 clarinet, 1 horn, a trombone, and 2 saxes, they can do it. So any combination is possible in this sort of full flex approach. And so what I have here for you is, and just so you make sure you understand, you can see just looking at this first page. You can see that I'm right here at measure 5. Ba, 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 ba. That's voice 1 right there. You can see that in the clarinet trumpet section here, it's also right there. Ba, 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 da. It's in the saxophone, da, and it's in the horns, and it's in the low brass. So anybody can have the tune, or anybody can have the bass line, quote unquote. In this case, it's just a sustained note. That exists in all of these combinations as well. So anybody can play anything. You could have the tubas on the melody and you can have the flutes on the quote unquote bass line if you want. So you can actually kind of have fun with that. At least the tubas get to have fun for a change. They get to play the melody. So it's completely flexible and it lends itself to imagination that not only the conductor but the players themselves can sort of use their imaginations and say, I'd like to try playing the bass line today, a flute player, because I'd like to see what it's like playing what is usually the lower part, just for fun. So you can have a lot of fun, or you can decide, you know what, we're going to have the flutes play voice 1 in measures 1 to 30, but then starting in measure 30, flutes, you'll tacit and don't play, and we'll let now the alto saxes have voice 1. So you can play around with it in that way so that not everybody's playing all the time. You have lots of flexibility, and with that comes some maybe thinking before the rehearsal as well. You have to sort of plan it out. How do you want this to be unfolding? Or you can do trial and error if you wish, just sort of experiment. So this is Cajun folk songs. I've got about 7 of these, 6 or 7 of these full flex pieces. And this is just an example of one of them. This is just a MIDI recording of this. So I'm going to focus in on this MIDI recording. I just imagine that the clarinets showed up on this day. So I'm sorry, that's all you're going to hear. Is you're going to imagine it's just clarinets. And I'll make it a little bit larger so you can see it a little more clearly. And let me make sure I know how to do this. I'm going to change, good. Changing pages as it goes. And here we go. Here's the MIDI recording of just MIDI clarinets. Okay, there you go. And by the way, the percussion all the percussion parts are there as well. So if you have percussion on a given day, they can play along as well. And not only that, the percussionists aren't just limited to playing the percussion part. If you want to give the marimba a flute, one of the flute parts, any one of those 4 parts in treble clef, C treble clef, they can play that. Or if you want to give them practice with bass clef, you can give them the bass clef C instruments, the low brass parts. So they don't just have to play the percussion parts that normally exist in the normal version of Cajun folk songs. They can play any of the other parts as well. So anyway, those are a couple of samples of mine. One being the cellular, modular cellular, the other being the full flex, and I have done some regular flex as well. And I'm happy to say that Robert Ambrose has done one of my pieces as a regular flex piece as well. And I hope you'll mention that, Robert, and because I'm just so grateful to Robert for doing it. He did such a beautiful job with the piece. And so I'm grateful to him. And Robert's not only done my music, he's done a piece of Eric Whitacre's. He's doing other people's works as well. So thank you for that, Robert. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Robert.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, sure, I'm happy to just share for a minute because you've seen some great music in the full flex realm and in the cellular module. And I'm going to go ahead and just show you the two that Frank's mentioned here. Here is an adaptable arrangement of Eric Whitacre's Seal Lullaby that's going to be coming out with Hal Leonard very soon. This is a regular flex piece that I did for Eric in 6 parts. Those are the parts there. So there's a great deal of flexibility. And here's the thing with this piece, is it can be performed by a wind band with as few as 6 people, brass choir, clarinet choir, woodwind choir, all of those different, and saxophone choir, excuse me. And one of the things I wanted to make sure I did is this is a piece, if you know it, has a very extensive piano part that's not optional. You have to have the piano. But just in case you didn't have a pianist, I scored the piano for marimba, vibraphone, and glockenspiel. So even without a pianist, you can still do the piece, or you can use those 3 instruments along with the piano, or any combination of it. So there's some high degree of flexibility there with that. And then just for a moment, I'll share with you Frank's Loch Lomond that I did as well, just the first page of it, also for Flex Ensemble. And this one also can be performed by an orchestra. So this is in 6 parts with percussion as well. That's the first page of it. This is available on Frank's site now. 6-part could be performed by band with 6 players, orchestra, string orchestra, woodwind choir, brass choir, and clarinet choir, all of those different options there. And then I promised that I would speak to you about where you can find this music. And I see that Dave Strickler is on with us, or was earlier, probably still is. Dave is one of the senior editors here of the Wind Repertoire project, windrep.org. And if you're not aware of this this page, it's an extraordinary contribution to our profession. It's the most comprehensive list of wind band music anywhere in the world. And what they did, they were so kind to help composers to get their music known to people, and to be sort of a one-stop shop for where you can find out about this repertoire. So you see here under ensemble categories, there's a couple of different categories that would apply: flexible instrumentation and adaptable instrumentation. But these folks were kind enough to give us our own section, and not that's not the part of it that I'm saying was kind of them. That what's beautiful about this is it's the only spot on the whole site that's actually sorted by composer instead of by title. So the software that they had requires that the music be sorted by title, which can be really cumbersome. If you're just looking at a title, you don't know who the composer is. So they created a special section. It's called Creative Repertoire Initiative, but it's not just our composers' music. You see there's Ball Mages, Blackshaw, Bruce Brighton, Steve Bryant, John Cage, Steve Danu, Mike Doherty. And the good folks at windrep.org have done a great job of keeping this up to date and with new additions all the time. Dave, are you still with us?
All right, I am on with you. Hi, Robert.
David, yeah, thanks. Sorry to just kind of throw this at you, but is there anything else you want to tell us about this site and how people can find adaptable music?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the opportunity. We keep adding new pieces, and we're up to 755 today, plus a couple that I just discovered in the last hour, which have not been added. However, you can find every single one of them on the Wind Repertoire project. Most of them are going to be, as Robert said, in the Creative Repertoire Initiative tab on the front page. Plus, if you look in the Adaptable Instrumentation category, down right there, you'll see all 700 in alphabetical order. I'm sorry, it was not feasible to list all these by composer, besides which most of these composers you haven't heard of anyway, and you wouldn't want to look that way. Here's the alphabetical list. I'm sorry that there's no real easy way to find out what the grade of each of these is, other than to look at each one. There is a more complicated way of searching, and I would be happy to help anybody who wants to essay that. But at this point, you've got 755 to choose from, and it's a great opportunity. We're very glad to be involved.
And the ones in the creative repertoire, that tab, they are listed by composer, right?
That's correct, but there are only about 15 of those out of the 400 or so composers that we have that are writing flexible stuff.
Right, 15 composers, right.
Yes.
Okay, friends, so that's just an overview of a couple of other Flex pieces and your one-stop shop for how to learn about these pieces. And I should mention, anyone can be a member of winrep.org. All you have to do is create an account, and you can add pieces, you can edit. It's a Wikipedia type, I don't know what the word is for that, but anyone can be a member and anyone can add pieces. Or if you email Dave or any of his colleagues, they'll put information up for you if you happen to be a composer. So I see that there's lots of questions in the chat, and I'm wondering, maybe Gail, if you want to, are we moving that way now? I'll mute and pass on. Thanks for the opportunity to chat.
Wonderful. Wow. Certainly have learned a lot, and there's a lot of questions coming in. One of the questions I want to ask that someone asked was to Frank, and the question was, of your pieces that you're doing, and probably of the other composers also, are there recordings with it so that bands can use them to listen to?
Well, since they're new, most of them are going to be MIDI recordings, and my publisher is just to take care of that, to have the MIDI recordings of those pieces. Many of these pieces, though, many band directors know already, at least of the ones I've done so far. They tend to be my more well-known pieces, so you know the pieces. It's just, here's an arrangement of a piece you may already know, and if you don't know, you can easily find YouTube performances, iTunes, Spotify, all kinds of recordings of that music out there.
That's the beauty, I think, of what you've done, is taking pieces that a lot of us already know and love and are now being allowed to use with different adaptable groups that we have to deal with due to COVID, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Another one was, a question that came up was small groups that only have a certain amount of money. What are the costs of these kinds of pieces? People are questioning that. Just wondering where we are with people that are struggling financially. Is there a way to do this? Are there any kinds of financial need for groups that are involved with pandemic issues? Just curious if you know.
It depends group to group, and for instance, a piece like Passages is $45. A publisher, composer like me tries to keep it within reach. Some pieces by my colleagues may be more expensive, but certainly any ensemble that is having budget issues should never hesitate to contact the publisher, which is often the composer, not always, and let them know and say, we'd love to do this piece. Is there a way you could work with us? Because I think a lot of publishers are really trying to help in these uncertain times.
Sounds like it, Alex. And while I have you there, one of the questions that came up also was, how are you seeing using the printed music and then possibly doing it in either a virtual way with when people have the music? Is it sent to you, which I would assume most of it now is being sent via, internet that you get, it's sent to you already scanned. But are there things that we need to worry about through ASCAP and BMI to perform these virtually out onto either the web or our Facebook or things of this nature?
It's not even so much ASCAP and BMI as it is the publishers and copyright issues, but these again are very easy. Don't be intimidated by this. There are so many different rights of copyright, and of course synchronization is when you're putting music to picture, which is sort of what's happening when you put your music up on YouTube or do a virtual band kind of thing or virtual choir or whatever. So the best practices for everybody is to, when you want to do something virtually, contact the publisher, which is often the composer these days, but not always. The other thing to be aware of is if you are dealing with digital parts from a publisher. and you want to distribute them, of course, to all of your musicians digitally, you need to get permission to do that, unless it is specifically stated in your invoice, that you have the right to do that. Always good practice is to just drop a note, let them know that you'd like to do this, and get permission in writing for that distribution, and it would be a limited distribution. For people like me, for instance, who have accompaniment tracks, because a number of my pieces are adaptable in that they are some of the up-tempo ones that are electroacoustic to begin with are very playable by any combination, tight squeeze or rock music or paper cut or lights out or all those, they're all very, very playable, or Off the Edge, the newest one. So what I've asked people to do is only share with the other musicians, in your ensemble, only share the version of the track that has the click in it, just for copyright protection a little bit, because you don't want too many people having that the performance track. So again, ask. It's always best to ask permission, and everybody really does want to help and work with our colleagues.
That's wonderful.
Could I just follow up on something on what Alex had mentioned, how you have to really go publisher by publisher. Every publisher is going to handle it differently. I just wanted to mention my publisher has decided to do something. I couldn't believe he agreed to this, but he's making the PDFs available free and clear. You don't have to, you can distribute them to your players, and we're trusting the person. When you purchase these PDFs, we're trusting that you're not going to share them with your crosstown friends, the band director across town, that you're not going to do that, because that is a violation of copyright. These are really unprecedented times that call for unprecedented action and exceptions to rules. Now, having said that, does that mean every publisher should do that? No, you have to respect every publisher's approach. Publishers have to protect themselves. And so every publisher is going to handle this in their own way. Right. We're just hoping that trust is a two-way factor that we're dealing with here. We are really trying to do all we can to help. We're also trying to keep costs way down. The members of CRI, we made it a mission of ours. We just said in our early on in our meetings, we all agreed, let's try to make this available at as low a cost as we can, because people are hurting out there. We know that about the situation, and we wanted to make sure we could do all we could to make this stuff affordable.
Very good. I know this is for just an information. I came to one of your earlier workshops, and I was very impressed with your new and young composers who are also starting to do adaptable music. And I just wanted to make mention of that because of the way CRI works, which I was so impressed with, that it's not about me, it's more about us. Mm-hmm. And I liked that. And I noticed you put up on CRI, there was a place I think Robert showed where you could find other composers. And I'm only saying that because you three are phenomenal. And it's just, I always trying really hard to let the new and young people have a chance at being heard. And so I just wanted to reiterate that. Is there anyone or anything you'd like to share about that?
Well, I can just say, any of us could speak to that, but I'll just say that it was equally as important for us in forming CRI to amplify the voices of other composers and to provide a path forward for anyone who wanted to try this. To us, that was as important as actually completing these pieces. We knew that there was only 12 of us, and there's only so much we could put out there. And the world needed more than these 12 voices, well, 11 plus any arrangements that I'm doing. I'm not primarily a composer by any stretch of the imagination, but I've done a few arrangements. But that was it's a singularly important mission for us to make sure that we were opening those doors and amplifying. And that, I think we're all particularly proud of the Facebook group and how many pieces have been pushed through that group. And how many people, they're hurting like everybody. Composers are hurting. Everybody's hurting. No one is immune to this. So we felt that, a rising tide lifts all ships, and that's what we want to do here.
Well, that's just very obvious and very wonderful. It just goes to show how much the music world will band together to make this happen. What kind of feedback are you getting so far? I mean, like, what groups are using these that you're hearing about? What's some of the feedback you're getting about them?
Every group imaginable, orchestras, community bands, student bands at all different grade levels. I mean, everybody seems to be in need and with interest of this way of taking care of their unusual needs at the time. And I think that one of the key things is that the people who are writing new pieces for this are trying to write pieces that will continue and be part of the repertoire long after this pandemic or any other future pandemic has passed. In other words, we're trying to add to the repertoire just in a creative manner with good music, good music.
Yeah, and it's not, and when Alex says everybody, she means that. Not only everybody, but all levels, professional groups. I'm doing a Zoom next Tuesday with a second-year band in Louisiana. They're doing one of these. Winnipeg Symphony, they're doing NC Dorian. So it's all levels. It's really wonderful.
And isn't that fantastic also? Let me ask you a question. Do you see any difference? Because ACB, Association of Concert Bands, is an adult organization that's trying to, sponsor and be involved with the adult music in the world, really. Do you see a difference in the adult bands versus the educational groups using your music at all?
I haven't seen, I deal with both all the time, and I have not seen a difference per se, other than, it's a different mindset when it's a very wide ranging age group of an adult band where you have everybody from students who are in high school or college up to 80-year-olds or beyond. And that's fantastic. So everybody has a pretty broad perspective with the community bands, as we know, and I love that. But I think, music is music is music, and music making is the same no matter what.
If there is any distinction, I see more adult bands are trying to do things virtually, whereas the school groups there's a combination of virtual and they're also meeting at school. With the adult bands, they're older folks, they're more at risk. They don't have to be there. They're there because they want to be there. And so they're having more trouble. The adult bands are having real trouble in the wake of this pandemic. And so they are trying, at least in my experience, maybe someone here can educate us, but in my experience, more adult groups are trying to do virtual kinds of things.
And I'm seeing that as well throughout the United States, especially if you're in a warmer climate, they're able to be still outside and doing some things, but it's starting to wane up here. And I'm from Michigan, and it's starting to be a little less of having that ability. And so then what do? We try to do the virtual, which we don't have the resources sometimes to do the virtual. So you have to be very creative, which I'm finding is the fun of it, at least for me as a conductor and a musician, is that's what we're all about. So obviously that's what CRI did. You became creative and you made this happen for all of us. And we're so grateful for sure. Was there anything else that any three of you would like to share before we close this wonderful conversation?
I just see a question there. Do you mean to end the whole session, or?
With anything else that you would like to say?
Oh, no, I just see another question there that's worth
It just
answering.
came up, actually. I didn't catch it.
Oh, no, there was someone who was asking about permissions for streaming online, and that's something I know Alex can speak to because she's an expert in this kind of thing.
Well, that's
yeah.
Sure. I mean, just briefly along the lines of what I mentioned before about contacting the publisher. As it turns out, ASCAP and I think BMI, but I can't say definitively for them, but in the educational realm of the blanket licenses for educational and recital concerts, streaming is actually included in those, but it is not included in the professional venues. Like, if you're going to be playing in Carnegie Hall, streaming is a separate license that ASCAP does not cover, and I'm guessing BMI doesn't either, but again, I'm not on their board, so I don't know. But at any rate, the safest thing you can do, as I said before, go ahead, contact your friendly publisher. They will talk to you. They will work things out with you. It will, things, especially for nonprofit groups, nothing's going to cost you an arm and a leg. And many of us, myself at the top of the list, absolutely are just giving licenses for free. Just saying what I do, and I recommend this to my colleagues. If it's a nonprofit group where they're not, this isn't Steven Spielberg calling for his next movie, I'll say, here, you may have the license. Just do me a favor and let me see what you're going to post before you post it so that I can make some suggestions if needed about the mix and the balance to make sure that the band sounds and looks as great as possible. And it's easy to do. And nobody seems to mind doing that at all. So that's a very simple way to do this.
I think it's great that you're granting license for free, Alex, and my publisher's doing the same. And both my choral and my band publisher, these are unprecedented times. Let's just give them the license for free. They do write. They appreciate it when you write in and ask for permission, and then the publisher responds saying you have license to do this gratis. And the best part about this is, so you're not paying anything. But then now BMI, I know this because Deirdre Chadwick is on this. Mm-hmm. She's head of concert music at BMI. They are now paying the composer for virtual performances of our music, which is not something they were doing before. And that doesn't cost you any. If you have a blanket license, if you're at a university or if you're a professional group, you probably have blanket license and so it doesn't cost you anything to do this. And yet the composer gets paid, so everybody wins in that situation.
PROs have licenses with Facebook and with YouTube, etc. And the best thing for the composers watching, especially, be sure to just screen capture and grab every bit of information about your online performances, both streaming live and archived, that you can, including number of people watching with eyes on the actual broadcast, and then, of course, archive numbers as they go up and up. Every bit of information that you can grab, submit that to your PRO for crediting of your pieces. People are still trying to work this out. The regrettable thing is that none of us are being paid, the rates that we should, through reasons that have nothing to do with the PROs and everything to do with the way rates are determined. And that's been a long battle. But we're all doing the best that we can in terms of making sure that money gets into people's pockets.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate that very much, that explanation. One of the questions came up for Frank, asking if you look to see perhaps that your American Elegy or Amazing Grace might be something you'll be doing for Adaptable.
Yeah, maybe. I hope it's possible. or Shenandoah. Yeah, it's when I have time, I'd like to do a couple more. It's just now I'm teaching. The school year started at USC, but perhaps I can get to
One general idea that I had, to share, getting a bit of feedback. Can you hear me all right?
Mute yourself there, Grace. Yeah.
There we go. One general bit of feedback, just to wrap up my thoughts on this for everybody, is that I always say be as creative in our lives as we are in our art making, right? And embrace the technologies that we can use to share music and make music together. Never think that it's either or. It's not either this or live performance, and it's not going to be that going forward. But let's embrace the tools that we have at the moment and make the best of them and use them for what they're really, really good at while we get through this particular long haul of this particular pandemic. We will all stay connected no matter what, and we will all be making music no matter what.
Thank you. One of the things that I can take away from this, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Susan Sands, our president, is the fact that the comfort level I'm feeling from you as composers of wanting to be connected to, and that we sometimes, I will say, as conductors and community bands, we feel somewhat like there's a big wall there because we really respect you so highly. You're the ones creating this music that we get to play. And so because of that, I feel that I would be much more comfortable contacting one of you and saying, I'm going to do this. What do you think? See, this is something I think that wall can come down, which is going to be wonderful moving forward. I really do believe. So thank you so very much, Frank and Robert and Alex. It's been a joy to get to know you. ACB is in your debt for helping us understand this better. And I would now like to turn this back over to our president, Susan Sands.
Thank you. Thank you. We're so glad that you could all be with us today for this really interesting and exciting and enlightening discussion. We'd like to extend our most sincere gratitude to our special guests, Robert Ambrose, Alex Shapiro, and Frank Ticheli, for being with us today. We're extremely grateful to you and to all the members of the Creative Repertoire Initiative for your contribution in expanding the offerings for smaller and unique ensembles. When we look back on these difficult times for the entire world, and including the music community, the CRI movement will be a bright spot of creativity and hope. that we will continue long after the ravages of the disease have passed. I would also like to offer a special thanks to our moderator, Gail Brechting, and to the whole ACB Connects team. For more information about CRI and for the links from today's session, please visit the ACB Connects page on the ACB website. In addition to the information from today's session, the ACB website has information about becoming a member, provides entrance to the ACB COVID-19 forum, offers access to all archived ACB Connects programs, including today's session, and as soon as it becomes available, we'll have the information for the next session of ACB Connects. The ACB COVID-19 Forum offers a place to give voice to what you've been doing and to see what other bands and musicians are doing right now. It's a place for announcements about virtual opportunities, sharing suggestions and strategies, and research updates. If you have a question or concern that you want to post to the band community, or if you're looking for more information about what research is telling us about disease mitigation during music performance, visit the ACB COVID-19 Forum. The forum is hosted on the ACB website and is available to both ACB members and non-members. For general information about ACB or to access all the links mentioned today, please visit our website homepage at acbands.org. We'd also love to have you follow us on Facebook. You'll see several new postings each week and releases of information about ACB and other band happenings as soon as it's available. And finally, be sure to check back for details and dates for the upcoming sessions of ACB Connects. Thank you for being with us today for this special opportunity to form new connections. We'll look forward to having you join us again at the next session of ACB Connects. Until then, take care and be safe.